This is the first video I've done, I think, since Christmas about the waste industry and big news and stuff like that. Anything that you guys in the waste industry might be interested in. But before I go into there and discuss that, I've got a insurance broker that we've come across, really good. He's specialising in the waste industry, trucks, go on construction sites or tippers, all that lot. And it's C&C Insurance. So I'll put a link here for you. So if you're after some cheap insurance, which is everybody, they work on low commissions and they've saved us a fortune. So ring these guys, tell them Billy told you to ring, and guarantee you'll save yourself a few grand on your quote that you're getting now. Going back, talking about the waste industry. So what's happened is they have released the 2025 budget for landfill tax. And this will probably come as a bit of a shock to you all, but the price is going to be going up close to 25%, I think it is, next April. They're going to be putting the landfill tax up to nearly £130, £126.15. It's absolutely crackers. I've been reading a lot of the information from the local newspapers and stuff like that, and the people that they get the information from and their point of opinion and stuff like that, they're off their heads. I've been reading it that they think that putting the increased tax on will make people recycle more, give more sustainability. I can guarantee you it won't make people recycle more, it'll make people do something else. I'm not going to go into that, but you boys in the waste industry, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. And this is something that I think these people who put these crazy prices on, that nobody else in Europe has prices as high as this, what they have to realise is in England we ain't got the infrastructure yet for all these large scale incinerators and stuff like that. We've got incinerators obviously, but we don't have enough to actually do the amount of waste that this country produces, so some of it has got to go to the landfill. It is just how it is. The capacity is not there. It don't matter how much you have. It's like in winter and summer with the wood. You'll know in winter there ain't enough wood because the power stations are burning that much of it. They're all online. They're all making loads of money, making loads of RHRs. But in summer they don't want your wood. So what happens? The price goes up. And what will happen is with incinerators in this country, and you can guarantee this, if the landfill tax is 126 quid, to go into an incinerator it's about 80 quid I think, but you've got to shred it and wrap it. So if you add them two costs together, it works out what the landfill tax is now, £105. So next year I can guarantee your RDF and anything going to a power station will go up 20 quid a tonne, because it's always in line with landfill tax. And for small companies like me and you, I presume, who's watching this, incinerators don't want to deal with us because we don't have big enough tonnages. That is a fact. But one thing I think that they've really missed out on here is companies like us, the small companies, we're going to have material that we need to get rid of which can't be recycled. Our gate fee for people coming into us and skips and everything else is going to have to be so high. If a general waste skip is, let's say for instance, 200, let's say between 200 and 300 quid now on average. If you're up north, the more like 200 because wood's cheaper to get rid of. But the further south you go, the more it is. So let's say you're 350 for instance. Next year, if every tonne of waste in that skip, say there's 3 tonne in an 8-yarder, you're going to be nearly £400 for an 8-yarder. So what will happen there? Well, this is what I think. This is only my opinion. I think you'll find people using council tips more. And people don't think about this stuff. They just look at it and go, right, we need to generate more revenue, so they put the price up. But if you actually think about it, your average man in a van, your average people living in houses who get skips and builders and stuff like that, all they'll do is they'll get 12 tipping tickets and they'll just use the local tip. What does that do? Puts more pressure on the local councils to get rid of it. I mean, you see these queues, people going into tips, they're massive now compared to what they will be, what they used to be. And if you probably look at the tonnages that are going into these council-run civil amenity sites, I bet the tonnages are through the roof because people don't want to pay for a skip. And that is the top and bottom of it. I mean, I know people with a council tax, they're paying for that service, and they should use that service 100%, don't disagree with it. But for me and you, the small skip companies, when, if you've got a transfer station or you ain't got a transfer station, the price of the skips and the tipping and everything else is just going to go through the roof. And it will be an opportunity, I would have thought, for some of the bigger companies to really stick a big increase onto all of us. Which then, obviously, like I say quite often, there's a big divide between the little skip companies and the big ones. You've got your massive ones, you've got the people like all of us, and then you've got your little ones that are running, on an exemption or illegal or whatever they're doing. So you'd find that this won't affect the small companies, the ones who are working on an exemption or whatever, and all the other little things they do. They probably won't be affected too much. The big companies who run into incinerators and into landfills, everything, who maybe own a landfill, whatever, it won't affect them too much. It'll be everybody in the middle, and that's where the divide comes, and that's where the problems come. I'm not going to go into tax and everything else. Pointless. I'm not an educated enough man in the tax system, but how they think a 25% increase on landfill tax is going to help anybody. The problem is, like I've said a million times, you can't recycle a shitty nappy. It doesn't matter how good you are, what you can do, or anything else. There's certain things that just can't be recycled. And it's not that, in theory, everything can be recycled. But then the government puts the minimum wage up so high that it's cheaper to send it abroad. And it's like one of them, you're exporting the pollution. A lot of these government people in the elections are talking about that now. So you've got steel in this country, they tax it to death with pollution fines and stuff like that if they create pollution. So then they send that material to China, they create the pollution in China by sending a ship over there, and then they bring the same ship back and then put it on our dock. Some of the ways that the people do it don't make sense. It's not always great for our economy the way that they do it. All that's going to happen with this waste, if the landfill tax goes up, more will be exported, more money out the country, more money out the economy and stuff like that. Like I say, I'm not no specialist in all this sort of stuff, but this is just looking at it from an idiot who runs a skip company, just the same as everybody else probably. But to try and make sense that it's cheaper to send something to another country and bring it back, creating pollution, and then you make the same pollution over there where you make it and then you bring it back and then put it on the dock and then move it again, and I don't get it. It don't make sense to me. But what do I know? But going back to the landfill tax increase, there's some things that can't be recycled because it's too expensive. You can get your trommel fans, for instance. You could have a man sat there picking out all your little tiny pieces of plastic like this all day. He could do. He might pick half a ton out in a full shift, and in that shift you'll pay him 150 quid, and then you'll take it and weigh it in and you'll get £1 for it. So it's actually better to landfill stuff and put things into incinerators and tips. The thing that kills the waste industry, I think, is mainly wages. And not that it kills the businesses, because your business will adjust its wages to any situation. If your wage is going up to 13 quid, 15 quid, whatever, you'll adjust your skip prices to it. But the recycling side of it, you cannot get the two numbers to match. So if you've got, like I said to you, somebody picking out bits of wood all day off a picking line, he picks 3 ton of wood out, it affects the full numbers game. So he might not be able to pick enough out to pay for his wages, and you might be able to send that material to a bigger company who can just do whatever they're doing with it. And this is where I don't think this game works really well, because it's actually not necessarily an incentive to recycle, it's more of an incentive to stick it in the hole. And I can guarantee that every time minimum wages go up, and wages, not just minimum, but any wages go up, people probably recycle less because it costs more to do it. I mean, we send most of our material out now unsorted. So we send some material out unsorted to other people who've got bigger plants that can run more material. And that's probably what a lot of you boys do. You don't have a transfer station, so you drive your lorry and then you tip it at somebody else's transfer station, and you're actually probably saving yourself a lot of headache. But where will this landfill tax, when will it get to a point where it's just not going to go up anymore? I don't know. I mean, we'll all be all right. I think we'll all make sense of it. I mean, it's just going to be a big jump. There'll be, you know, like they always say, there'll be a lot of fly tipping and stuff like that. Fly tipping's at an all-time high. There's no two ways about that. And what the landfill tax does when it goes up, it puts more pressure on local authorities, because if people fly tip, I was looking in the local paper the other day, because I'm always interested in anything to do with waste. They put the landfill tax up, and years ago there was an increase in people fly tipping and stuff, but the fly tip material is tipped on local sites, so the national government collect the landfill tax, but it's the local government that will be paying. So your local council will be paying to get rid of that material and dispose of it and everything else. So this idea of making things better, I think actually in the long term and the long run makes it probably quite a lot worse for local communities, especially if you're somewhere that's, you know, has a lot of fly tipping, somewhere rural and things like that. And the other thing is, these sites that operate without a permit and stuff like that, where they just fill stuff up, you've probably seen it on some of the other videos, well, you might as well do it. If landfill tax is going to be 125 quid, you're going to have another 10 quid to move it, says 135. Say call it 20 quid for the landfill. So, you know, tipping is going to be 160. That's leaving the transfer station. They've got to make a little bit. I would have said tipping is going to be close to 200 a tonne for crappy material from next year. So you might as well run one of them dodgy sites, because what do they get? You look in the paper, they get 12 months and whatever. It makes sense, doesn't it, to run a site like that if that's the case. You can understand why people do it. You know, I can completely understand why people do it. But anyway, I thought that little bit of information would probably piss you off or get you excited or whatever. And don't forget, subscribe if you're interested in the waste industry, and I will see you all really soon.